They say home is where the heart is. For 40 wonderful years, this sprawling lakeside mansion held my heart, cradled the memories of my dear husband, Robert. And apparently, unbeknownst to me until recently, it also housed a ticking countdown timer, meticulously set by my own daughter-in-law. For years, I lived in a comfortable illusion. I believed the attention, the fussing, the endless cups of chamomile tea. Jennifer, my son David's wife, pressed into my hands each evening were genuine expressions of affection, perhaps even love, a comforting ritual in my golden years. Until one moonless night, a misplaced thirst led me down the back staircase, and I heard the whisper, meant only for my son David's ears, drifting from the half-open kitchen door. Just a little more in her tea each night, David. Her heart isn't strong anymore. It won't be long now. Soon this place will finally be ours. The floor seemed to drop away beneath me. The place she meant was my home. Robert's and my home. And the heart not strong anymore. She was talking about me. The tea, my nightly comfort, was intended to be my demise. If you are listening to this story, thank you so much for being here. Let us know where you are joining us from in the world. And do not forget to subscribe to become part of our growing community. My name is Martha. I am 72 years old. And until Robert passed 3 years ago from a sudden stroke, my life felt blessedly uncomplicated. I spent 35 years as a head nurse, managing busy hospital wards, dealing with life and death situations daily. I thought I had seen the extremes of human nature. Turns out I had not. Robert was an architect, the brilliant mind behind this beautiful house. We designed it together, poured our dreams into every beam, every window pane overlooking the shimmering lake. He wanted grandeur. I wanted warmth. We compromised beautifully. We raised David here, celebrated anniversaries, hosted countless family Christmases. Every corner holds an echo of Robert's laughter, his scent of pipe tobacco and sawdust, the feeling of his hand steady on mine as we watched the sunset paint the water gold from the veranda. After he was gone, the silence in these large rooms was deafening. The house felt too big, haunted by echoes only I could hear. David, my only child, and Jennifer lived in a cramped suburban townhouse an hour away with their 2 teenagers, Lily and Tom. David is a good man, I always thought, just perhaps a bit lacking in ambition, easily swayed. Jennifer. Well, Jennifer was always impeccably turned out, quick with a compliment, but there was something behind her eyes I could never quite read. Still, when David tentatively suggested, about a year after Robert's passing, that perhaps it made sense for them to move in with me, I readily agreed. "It would be easier for us to help you out, Mom," David had said, glancing nervously at Jennifer, who nodded encouragingly. "And honestly, with the kids getting bigger, we're bursting at the seams. Plus, you shouldn't be alone in this huge place." Jennifer added smoothly, "We could help with the upkeep, Martha, and you could spend more time with Lily and Tom. They adore their grandma." The logic seemed sound. I was lonely. The house was too big. Having family around, hearing the chatter of grandchildren seemed like a balm to my grieving heart. So, they sold their townhouse for less than they hoped. Jennifer complained privately to David, a snippet I overheard but dismissed, and moved into the West Wing. At first, it seemed to work. The house felt alive again. Lily and Tom filled the rooms with teenage energy. Jennifer took over managing the household with brisk efficiency, insisting I shouldn't lift a finger. She started the nightly ritual of bringing me chamomile tea before bed. "To help you relax, Martha," she'd smile, placing the steaming cup on my bedside table. Good night's sleep is so important at your age." David seemed relieved, less burdened, happy to let Jennifer take charge. I settled into the role of the doting grandmother, the matriarch enjoying her family's presence, blissfully unaware of the viper I had welcomed into my nest. The catalyst, the moment the illusion shattered, came on a stiflingly hot August night. I woke around 2 a.m., my mouth dry as dust. The carafe of water I usually kept by my bed was empty. Thinking everyone else was asleep, I crept quietly down the back servant's staircase, heading towards the kitchen, not wanting to disturb anyone by using the main stairs near their wing. As I neared the bottom, I heard low voices from the kitchen. David and Jennifer. My first instinct was to turn back, not wanting to intrude. But then I heard Jennifer's sharp, hushed tone slicing through the stillness. "Just have to be patient, David. A little more each time. Nobody will suspect a thing." My feet froze on the bottom step, hidden in shadow. David's voice was low, hesitant. "Are you sure, Jen? What if something goes wrong? What if we give her too much?" "Too much?" Jennifer scoffed, her voice laced with contempt. "Honestly, David, sometimes I think you want to live in that pokey guest room forever. Her heart is weak. Dr. Miller himself said she needs to take it easy after that little flutter last year. A bit of extra sedative in her nightly tea. It just helps her rest peacefully. If her heart gives out in her sleep, everyone will just say it was her time. Natural causes. And this place," her voice dropped, filled with avarice, "this whole ridiculous, oversized mansion, finally becomes ours. Think of the life we could have, the kids' college funds." Sedative. In my tea. Every night. The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. My breath caught in my chest. This was not just wishful thinking about inheritance. This was a cold, calculated plan to hasten my death. And David? My David Wahe was letting her, maybe even helping her. "But Mom seems fine," David mumbled, a feeble protest. "Exactly," Jennifer hissed. "She seems fine. We need to nudge things along. Stop being so squeamish. Think about the payoff. Just keep smiling, keep letting me handle her tea, and act like the dutiful son. It won't be long now." I didn't hear David's reply. I could not bear to. Bile rose in my throat. My legs felt like lead, but somehow I managed to turn, to creep back up the stairs on trembling limbs, my mind reeling. Back in the perceived safety of my room, I locked the door, something I hadn't done in years. I sank onto the edge of my bed, the ornate porcelain teacup Jennifer had left on my nightstand earlier, catching the faint moonlight. It looked obscene now, menacing. My nurse's training, buried under years of retirement and grief, surged to the forefront. Shock gave way to cold, analytical thought. Panic wouldn't help. Accusations without proof would be dismissed as senile paranoia, exactly what Jennifer would want. They thought I was a frail old woman, easily manipulated, easily disposed of. They underestimated me. They forgot I spent decades observing patients, noting subtle changes, documenting facts, dealing with life and death under pressure. I wouldn't crumble, I would fight, but not openly, not yet. The next morning felt like walking onto a stage for a play I hadn't rehearsed. When Jennifer breezed into my room, beaming, holding my customary cup of tea, it took every ounce of self-control not to recoil. "Morning, Martha," she chirped. "Chamomile tea for you, nice and hot. Hope you slept well." I looked directly into her eyes, searching for any flicker of guilt, any hint of the monster beneath the mask. There was nothing, just bright, empty cheerfulness. "Thank you, Jennifer dear," I managed, my voice steady, though my insides churned. I took the cup, my fingers brushing hers. Her skin felt cold. As soon as she left the room, humming happily, I carried the cup into my ensuite bathroom and poured the contents down the sink, rinsing the cup thoroughly. I then brewed myself a cup of Earl Grey from the stash Robert always kept, using the electric kettle in my room. Sitting by the window, watching the early morning sun dance on the lake, the plan began to form. They wanted to play a waiting game? Fine. We would play. But I would set the rules. I would gather my evidence, piece by piece. I would become the silent observer in my own home, watching the watchers, documenting their deceit. My mind, sharpened by years of clinical observation, felt clearer than it had in months. Jennifer thought she was lulling me into a final, peaceful sleep. She had no idea she had just woken me up. She handed me the steaming teacup, her eyes full of fake concern. "Drink up, Mom," she murmured. "It will help you rest." Oh, I would rest, eventually. But first, I had work to do. She thought she was dealing with a frail old lady. She forgot I used to be a nurse, and this nurse was about to go on duty. The days following my horrifying discovery took on a surreal quality. I moved through my own home like an undercover agent. Every interaction, every shared meal, every seemingly innocent conversation, fraught with hidden meaning and suppressed terror. My nurse's training kicked in, providing a strange sort of detached calm over the swirling vortex of grief and betrayal inside me. Observation, documentation, patience. Those were my watchwords now. My first task was surveillance. Jennifer prepared my tea in the main kitchen each evening. I needed eyes in there. After some discreet online research using the old tablet Robert had left me, thankfully, Jennifer showed little interest in my dinosaur technology. I ordered a couple of tiny, hidden cameras disguised as everyday objects. One looked like a digital clock, another like a phone charger. They arrived hidden in unassuming packaging. Installing them required stealth. I waited until David and Jennifer took the kids out for pizza one Friday night. My hands, usually steady from years of handling needles and instruments, trembled slightly as I positioned the clock camera on a high shelf in the kitchen, angled perfectly towards the countertop where the kettle and tea things were kept. The charger camera went into an outlet in the living room, near the armchair where I usually sat to drink my evening tea, just in case she ever added anything later. Learning to operate them via a simple app on my tablet felt empowering, a small victory in reclaiming control. Then came the challenge of the tea itself. I couldn't simply refuse it. That would arouse immediate suspicion. Jennifer always brought it to my room or handed it to me directly in the living room, often lingering for a chat, her eyes scanning my face with that unnervingly false solicitude. I developed a repertoire of disposal techniques. Sometimes I'd carry the cup towards the veranda overlooking the lake, pretending to admire the view, and discreetly pour the contents into a large potted plant when her back was turned. Other times I'd feign clumsiness, accidentally spilling some onto a napkin while coughing, then take the cup to the kitchen sink myself to rinse it, dumping the rest down the drain. The most nerve-wracking was when she stayed in the room. I learned to take tiny, performative sips while she was looking, then hold the warm liquid in my mouth until she left, spitting it discreetly into a tissue or down the bathroom sink later. It was a degrading, terrifying charade, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth, both literally and figuratively. Each night felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of vipers. Meanwhile, I played my part meticulously. I feigned mild forgetfulness occasionally. I complained of feeling a bit more tired than usual, plausible symptoms if her sedatives were having some effect, though thankfully my secret disposal methods were working. I allowed Jennifer to fuss over me, patting her hand and thanking her for her kindness. All the while, my mind was racing, observing her every move, every flicker in her eyes. David remained mostly oblivious, wrapped up in his work or avoiding difficult conversations, seemingly content to let Jennifer manage things, including me. He occasionally asked if I was feeling all right, a touch of guilt perhaps coloring his tone, but he never questioned Jennifer's actions, never looked too closely. His willful blindness was almost as painful as her deliberate malice. After about a week of this tense routine, the hidden camera in the kitchen paid off. I had learned to check the recordings late at night, huddled in my locked bedroom, the tablet screen casting an eerie glow on my face. Most of the footage was mundane, Jennifer making coffee, the kids grabbing snacks. But then, one evening's recording made my blood run cold. The footage showed Jennifer alone in the kitchen, preparing my nightly tea. The camera angle was perfect. She boiled the water, placed the chamomile tea bag in my favorite porcelain cup. Then, she glanced quickly towards the kitchen door before reaching into the pocket of her apron. She pulled out a small, nondescript brown glass vial, the kind often used for prescription eye drops or herbal tinctures. Her movements were quick, furtive. She unscrewed the cap, tilted the vial over the teacup, and squeezed out precisely 3 drops of a clear liquid. She quickly screwed the cap back on, slipped the vial back into her pocket, and then poured the boiling water over the tea bag as if nothing had happened. She stirred it, added the usual slice of lemon, placed it on a small tray, and carried it out of the kitchen, presumably towards my room, her face arranged in its usual pleasant mask. Watching it, I felt a wave of nausea. It wasn't my imagination. It wasn't paranoia. It was cold, calculated, methodical poisoning, captured in high-definition digital clarity. 3 drops. Every night? Or was she increasing the dose? The vial? What was in it? Something tasteless, odorless, designed to mimic or exacerbate my minor heart palpitations? My nursing mind raced through possibilities. Digoxin toxicity, beta blockers, tranquilizers, any number of substances that, administered slowly, could cause cardiac issues or cognitive decline, eventually leading to a seemingly natural death for a woman my age. The tiny lens captured it all. The quick, furtive movement. The small vial tilted over my teacup. It was undeniable proof of her cold, calculated intent, disguised behind a loving gesture. She had smiled warmly as she handed me that very cup moments after the recording stopped. "Drink up, Martha. It'll help you sleep soundly." Now that I had the proof on film, a chilling question arose. How far was she actually willing to go to get her hands on my home? And how long before David's weak conscience finally cracked, or before he became a more active participant? The video evidence galvanized me. I now had irrefutable proof of her actions, but I needed more. I needed to know what she was putting in the tea. I needed scientific confirmation to back up the video. This meant collecting samples, a task even trickier than installing cameras or disposing of the tea. I started carrying small, sterile sample vials, left over from my nursing days, tucked into my pockets. When Jennifer brought the tea, I had to find opportunities. Sometimes I'd ask for a biscuit, creating a diversion while I quickly used a clean eyedropper, also concealed, to siphon a small amount into a vial hidden in my lap. Other times, I'd accidentally slosh some into the saucer, then carry both cup and saucer to my room, carefully collecting the spilled liquid later. Each sample was meticulously labeled with the date and time before being hidden securely in a locked box at the back of my wardrobe, alongside the memory cards from the cameras. Living like this was exhausting. The constant vigilance, the forced smiles, the knowledge that the people sharing my home, my own son and his wife, were actively plotting my demise. It chipped away at my nerves. I started genuinely feeling more tired, not from sedatives, but from the sheer stress of the deception. Jennifer seemed to notice my apparent fatigue, but misinterpreted it as a sign her plan was working. I saw a new impatience in her eyes, a subtle tightening around her mouth when she looked at me. She started making comments like, "Perhaps you should rest in bed more today, Martha. You look peaky." Or asking David, within my earshot, "Do you think your mother should maybe see Dr. Miller again, just for a checkup on her heart?" She was trying to build a narrative, laying the groundwork for the inevitable decline. David, meanwhile, seemed increasingly uncomfortable. He avoided my gaze more often, spent longer hours supposedly working late, and his attempts at conversation felt forced and hollow. He knew. Maybe not the exact details, maybe not about the specific substance, but he knew Jennifer was doing something, and his silence was his complicity. The disappointment I felt in him was a heavy ache, a constant companion to the fear and anger Jennifer inspired. I knew I couldn't continue this charade indefinitely. I had the video footage. I had a growing collection of carefully labeled tea samples. It was time to bring in reinforcements, professionals I could trust implicitly. It was time to confirm my suspicions scientifically and to secure my legacy, ensuring that Jennifer and David would never profit from their monstrous scheme. My thoughts turned to Dr. Evans, my old colleague and friend, a man whose integrity was beyond question. And then to Mr. Harrison, the family lawyer who had handled Robert's estate, a man known for his discretion and sharp legal mind. It was time to move from defense to offense. The silent witness was ready to build her case. Having concrete video evidence of Jennifer's actions was a significant step, but the image of that small vial being tilted over my teacup haunted my waking thoughts and my dreams. What exactly was she giving me? Was it just a mild sedative or something more sinister? Was she increasing the dosage as her growing impatience seemed to suggest? My nursing instincts screamed for confirmation, for hard data. The carefully collected and labeled tea samples hidden in my wardrobe felt like ticking time bombs. It was time to bring in outside expertise. I called Dr. Evans's office. Arthur Evans had been my colleague at the hospital for over 20 years before we both retired, and he'd remained a trusted friend and, occasionally, my physician. I scheduled a routine checkup, citing some minor complaints, feeling a bit run down, occasional dizziness, things plausible for my age and consistent with the effects of low-dose sedatives, ensuring Jennifer wouldn't be suspicious if she overheard. A few days later, I sat in Dr. Evans's familiar comforting office. After discussing my fabricated symptoms, I leaned forward conspiratorially. "Arthur," I began, lowering my voice, "there's something else, rather delicate. I know this sounds odd, but I've been having some concerns about the chamomile tea my daughter-in-law prepares for me each evening. Sometimes, after drinking it, I feel unusually groggy, almost disconnected. It might be nothing, just my age, but—" I paused, choosing my words carefully. With my history of slight heart palpitations, I wondered if perhaps something in the tea could be interacting badly with my blood pressure medication. It's probably silly. I pulled out 3 of the small, carefully sealed sample vials from my handbag, labeled simply with dates from the previous week. I saved a little from the last few nights. Would it be terribly much trouble to, perhaps, have these analyzed, just to rule out any contamination or unusual herbal interactions? It would put my mind at ease. I tried to sound like a slightly anxious, perhaps overly cautious elderly patient, tapping into a persona I knew well from my nursing days. Arthur looked at me sharply over his spectacles. He knew me too well, knew my sharp mind, my clinical background. He likely sensed there was more to the story than herbal interactions. But he also trusted my judgment. He picked up one of the vials, examining the pale liquid. "Chamomile tea, you say?" His voice was carefully neutral. "All right, Martha. Let's see what we can find out." "No trouble at all. I'll send these off to a reliable lab, discreetly. We'll mark it as a general toxicology screen." He met my gaze, a silent understanding passing between us. He knew this wasn't standard procedure, but he trusted me enough not to pry further at that moment. Leaving his office, I felt a surge of relief mixed with trepidation. The wheels were in motion. While waiting for the lab results, I made another crucial call. This time to Mr. Harrison, the stoic, silver-haired lawyer who had handled Robert's will and our estate planning for years. I requested an urgent and confidential appointment, emphasizing it was regarding revisions to my own will. A few days later, the call from Dr. Evans came. His voice was grave. "Martha, Arthur here. I have the results back from those tea samples." He paused. "They tested positive for benzodiazepines, specifically lorazepam, in varying but consistently present amounts across all 3 samples. Lorazepam, a potent anti-anxiety medication, a sedative, highly effective, potentially dangerous if misused, especially in the elderly or those with heart conditions. It could cause drowsiness, confusion, dizziness, slowed breathing, and yes, potentially fatal cardiac events if administered inappropriately or combined with other medications." The confirmation hit me like a cold wave, even though I had expected it. My daughter-in-law was systematically drugging me. "Are you all right, Martha?" Arthur asked, concern evident in his voice. "Yes, Arthur, thank you," I managed, my voice tight. "Thank you for confirming. This information is vital. I trust this remains confidential." "Absolutely," he assured me. "Is there anything else I can do? Do you need me to—" "Not yet," I interrupted gently, "but I may need your support soon. Thank you again, my friend." Armed with the doctor's grim confirmation, I walked into Mr. Harrison's imposing, book-lined office the next day feeling strangely calm, almost detached. There was no room left for tears or fear, only for action. "Mr. Harrison," I began, getting straight to the point after the initial pleasantries. "I need to make significant, immediate changes to my last will and testament." He raised an eyebrow slightly, but waited patiently. "Of course, Martha. What did you have in mind?" "I want to remove my son, David Peterson, as the primary beneficiary," I stated flatly. Mr. Harrison looked surprised, but remained professional. "May I ask the reason for this substantial change?" "Let's just say," I replied, my voice even, "that recent events have made it clear David is no longer suitable to inherit the bulk of the estate Robert and I worked so hard to build. I saw no need to burden him with the sordid details of the poisoning plot. The outcome was all that mattered for the will. Instead, I wish for the entirety of the property, including the house and grounds, along with the majority of my financial assets, to be bequeathed to a charitable foundation upon my death." I specified the type of foundation, one dedicated to providing high-quality, compassionate elder care, perhaps named in Robert's memory. Mr. Harrison took notes, his expression unreadable. "And what provision would you like to make for David?" A cold knot tightened in my chest, but my voice didn't waver. "David is to receive the nominal sum of $1 United States dollar." The lawyer finally looked up, his gaze sharp. $1? That's a clear statement of disinheritance, Martha. Are you certain?" "Perfectly certain," I confirmed. "And I would like to include a specific clause, or perhaps a separate letter, to be read alongside the will, explaining this decision." I dictated the words slowly, deliberately. It should state, To my son, David. You receive this single dollar as a symbol of the choice you made. When faced with greed and malice directed towards your mother, you chose silence. You valued inheritance over integrity, comfort over courage. May this dollar serve as a reminder of the true cost of your inaction. Mr. Harrison finished writing, his face grim. Very well, Martha. I will have the new will drafted immediately for your signature. Leaving his office, I felt lighter than I had in months. I had taken back control. Jennifer and David thought they were writing my final chapter, plotting the distribution of my assets. They had no idea I had just rewritten the ending, ensuring their scheme would yield nothing but dust and ashes. The medical confirmation, coupled with the legal finality of the new will, formed an armor around my resolve. Back in the house, I continued my performance, perhaps emboldened by my apparent lack of suspicion and the perceived success of her nightly ministrations. I made sure to occasionally stumble or seem confused about minor things. Jennifer's impatience grew more noticeable. Her smiles seemed tighter, her helpfulness more brittle. I caught her watching me sometimes with an unnerving intensity, as if trying to gauge how much longer she'd have to keep up the charade. Once, reviewing the camera footage, I saw her hesitate before adding the drops to my tea, then shake her head almost imperceptibly and add an extra drop, as if arguing with herself and deciding to expedite the process. The cold-bloodedness of it was chilling. David, conversely, seemed to sink deeper into a mire of guilt and avoidance. He rarely met my eyes, made excuses to stay late at work, and mumbled monosyllabic answers when I tried to engage him in conversation. He looked haunted, trapped between his avaricious wife and the mother he was betraying. A part of me pitied him, but the pity was drowned out by disappointment and the cold realization that his weakness was as dangerous as Jennifer's act of malice. As my 73rd birthday approached, Jennifer suddenly became effervescent with an idea. "Martha, dear," she announced one evening at dinner, beaming across the table, "David and I were thinking we absolutely must throw you a proper birthday party this year, right here at the house. Invite all your friends, family, maybe a real celebration." David mumbled his agreement, pushing mashed potatoes around his plate. I saw it immediately, the perfect stage. A house full of witnesses, all our friends, neighbors who had known Robert and me for years, even some extended family. What better place to unveil the truth than at a celebration orchestrated by my own would-be executioner? "Why, Jennifer, that's very thoughtful of you," I said, injecting a note of frail gratitude into my voice. "A party sounds lovely." Jennifer clapped her hands together, delighted. "Wonderful! I'll handle everything. You just relax and look forward to it, Mom." "Oh, I would look forward to it indeed." The final act was about to begin. I spent the next 2 weeks meticulously preparing. I edited the camera footage, selecting the clearest, most damning clips of Jennifer doctoring my tea on multiple occasions. I saved the compiled video onto a USB drive. I spoke discreetly with Mr. Harrison and Dr. Evans, explaining that I would appreciate their presence at my birthday celebration as dear old friends, subtly hinting that their support might be needed. I checked the large television and media player in the living room, ensuring I knew exactly how to connect the USB and play the video when the moment came. The night before the party, a wave of deep melancholy washed over me. I sat in Robert's old leather armchair in the library, nursing a cup of real tea I had made myself. The house was silent around me, filled with ghosts of happier times. Was I doing the right thing? Exposing Jennifer and David so publicly would create a scandal, shatter the family, undoubtedly scar Lily and Tom forever. Was there a less brutal way? Couldn't I just confront them privately, show them the evidence, Force them to leave? But as I looked at Robert's portrait above the fireplace, his kind eyes seeming to meet mine, I knew a private confrontation wouldn't suffice. Jennifer would lie, manipulate, twist the narrative. David would likely crumble and deny. The truth needed sunlight. Their actions, planned and executed in secret, deserved to be exposed in the open. It wasn't about revenge, not entirely. It was about justice. It was about protecting Robert's legacy and ensuring such calculated evil did not triumph. It was about stopping them before they actually succeeded. My resolve, momentarily shaken, solidified once more. The mansion was quiet now, holding its breath before the storm. Tomorrow, these walls, witnesses to so much love and laughter, would witness either my final humiliation or my ultimate vindication. Jennifer's carefully crafted world was about to collide with unvarnished truth, and I held the detonator in my hand. The party was about to begin. The day of the party dawned bright and clear, the lake outside sparkling under a brilliant blue sky, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within the mansion walls. I allowed Jennifer to fuss over me, helping me choose a dress, a soft lavender silk I knew Robert liked, arranging my hair. Her hands felt cold against my scalp. Her chatter about guest lists and canapés grated on my nerves, each cheerful word a dissonant note against the grim reality only I knew. I played my part, the frail but grateful birthday girl, leaning slightly on her arm as we went downstairs to greet the first arrivals. The house filled quickly. Friends from my bridge club, neighbors from along the lake, Robert's former business partners, even distant cousins I hadn't seen in years. They offered warm wishes, admired the house, reminisced about Robert. David moved through the crowd like a ghost, forcing smiles, shaking hands, his eyes constantly darting towards me with a hunted look before quickly looking away. Jennifer, however, was in her element, playing the gracious hostess, the devoted daughter-in-law, accepting compliments on the beautiful party she had arranged for her dear mother-in-law. The hypocrisy was almost suffocating. I saw Dr. Evans arrive, giving me a discreet, supportive nod from across the room. A little later, Mr. Harrison appeared, his expression professionally impassive, blending into the background near the large French doors leading to the garden. Their presence was a quiet reassurance. My allies were in place. As the afternoon wore on, the party reached its peak. Champagne flowed, laughter echoed. Jennifer, flushed with success and perhaps a little too much wine, decided it was time for the centerpiece moment, the birthday toast. She tapped a glass for attention, beaming at the assembled guests. David stood beside her, looking miserable. "Friends, family," Jennifer began, her voice resonating through the suddenly quiet room. "We are gathered here today to celebrate someone truly special, my wonderful mother-in-law, Martha." She turned towards me, her eyes gleaming with an emotion I now recognized as avarice, not affection. "She has been such a blessing to our family, welcoming us into this beautiful home, showering Lily and Tom with love. It's truly an honor and a privilege to care for her in her golden years." She raised her glass high. "So let us all toast Martha. May she have many more happy, peaceful years ahead of her." A chorus of "Happy birthday, Martha!" and "Cheers!" filled the room. Guests raised their glasses. Jennifer took a triumphant sip of her champagne, her eyes meeting mine over the rim of her glass with a look that sent a shiver down my spine, a look of barely concealed impatience, of anticipation. This was my cue. Before anyone else could speak, I cleared my throat gently. The room quieted again, expecting perhaps a few words of thanks from the birthday girl. I stood up slowly, steadying myself on the arm of my chair. "Jennifer," I said, my voice quiet but carrying clearly in the hush. "Thank you. Your words and your care." have been quite something. I let the slight emphasis hang in the air for a beat. But before we continue the celebration, I think there's something everyone here deserves to know. Something about the special care you've been providing me. A confused murmur rippled through the crowd. Jennifer's smile froze on her face, her eyes narrowing slightly. David shifted uncomfortably. You see, I continued, my voice gaining strength, Jennifer has been particularly diligent about my nightly cup of chamomile tea. She insists it helps me rest peacefully. I paused, letting my gaze sweep across the room, meeting the eyes of my friends, my neighbors. I recently became curious about what made this tea so effective. I nodded towards Mr. Harrison, who discreetly moved towards the large television mounted on the wall, the one usually used for family movie nights. He inserted the USB drive I had given him earlier. Perhaps, I said, my voice hardening, we should all see Jennifer's special recipe in action. The screen flickered to life. The first clip showed the kitchen counter, my favorite porcelain teacup. Then, Jennifer entered the frame, glancing around quickly before pulling the small brown vial from her apron pocket. The room was utterly silent now, save for the faint whirring of the ceiling fan. Guests leaned forward, their expressions shifting from curiosity to confusion, then dawning horror as they watched Jennifer carefully squeeze 3 clear drops into the teacup before adding the tea bag and hot water. Mr. Harrison let the first clip play through, then switched to another, dated a few days later. Same scene, same furtive action. Then another and another, a compilation of quiet, damnable moments played out in stark silence on the big screen. Jennifer gasped, her face draining of all color, turning a ghastly white. No, that's not what it looks like. It's vitamins, herbal drops for energy, she stammered, her voice high-pitched with panic. Really, Jennifer? I asked coolly, turning to face her directly. Vitamins? Or lorazepam? A potent sedative, confirmed by laboratory analysis of samples I took from those cups. I nodded towards Dr. Evans, who stepped forward slightly, his face grave. As Martha's physician and friend, Dr. Evans stated calmly but firmly, I can confirm that samples of tea provided to me by Martha tested positive for significant levels of lorazepam, a prescription sedative she was not prescribed and which could have dangerous interactions with her existing heart medication. A collective gasp went through the room. All eyes were now on Jennifer and David. Jennifer looked wildly around, trapped. David looked like he was about to be physically sick, his face buried in his hands. For months, I addressed the horrified guests, my voice ringing with righteous anger. My daughter-in-law, with the silent complicity of my son, has been attempting to poison me slowly, hoping to hasten my death so they could inherit this house. It's lies, all lies, Jennifer shrieked, losing control completely. She's a confused old woman making things up. David, tell them she's crazy. But David couldn't speak. He just shook his head mutely, tears streaming down his face. His silence was his confession. Mr. Harrison stepped forward again. Perhaps this is also relevant, he announced, his voice cutting through the turmoil. Acting on Martha's instructions 10 days ago, I drafted and finalized a new will. The entirety of this estate, upon her passing, will now be transferred to the Robert Peterson Foundation for elder care. Her son, David, is bequeathed the sum of $1. He paused, then read clearly, as a symbol of the choice you made, you valued inheritance over integrity. May this dollar serve as a reminder of the true cost of your inaction. The finality of it hung in the air. Jennifer stared, utterly defeated, her face a mask of disbelief and fury. The guests erupted in shocked murmurs, angry whispers, expressions of disgust directed at the couple who stood exposed in the center of the room. The rest of the party dissolved into chaos. Someone, I think it was Dr. Evans, quietly called the police. Jennifer alternated between hysterical denials and venomous accusations aimed at me. David simply stood there, broken. Several friends rushed to my side, offering comfort and support. The police arrived discreetly, took initial statements, and escorted a struggling, shouting Jennifer out of the house. David slipped away sometime during the commotion, disappearing without a word, his departure as cowardly as his complicity. Lily and Tom, who had witnessed the whole scene from the doorway, looked utterly shell-shocked and bewildered, victims themselves in their parents' destructive wake. In the aftermath, the legal process took its course. Faced with the video evidence and lab results, Jennifer had little defense. She was eventually convicted of attempted assault and endangerment, receiving a significant prison sentence. David, while not charged criminally due to lack of direct evidence of his participation beyond knowing silence, faced social and familial exile. He moved away with the children, contact becoming minimal, strained. The rift felt absolute. Selling the mansion was a wrenching decision, filled with bittersweet memories of Robert. But it was necessary. The house felt tainted by the betrayal. Staying there felt like living in a beautiful tomb. True to my revised will's intent, I used the substantial proceeds to establish Robert's Haven, a non-profit assisted living facility focused on providing the kind of respectful, high-quality care that every senior deserves, the polar opposite of Jennifer's deadly intentions. Life looks very different now. I live in a comfortable apartment within Robert's Haven, not as a resident needing full-time care yet, but as an active board member and volunteer. I spend my days helping organize activities, chatting with the residents, sharing stories. Sometimes I use my old nursing skills to simply sit and listen, offering comfort. The guilt and anger have faded, replaced by a quiet sense of purpose. I lost a son in a way, and the image of my family I once cherished. But I found something else: peace, independence, and the satisfaction of turning a dark chapter into a source of light for others. Sitting here now, in the cheerful sunroom of Robert's Haven, watching the residents laugh during a game of cards, I occasionally touch the locket I wear, the one with Robert's picture inside. He would have hated what Jennifer and David did, but I hope, he would be proud of how I handled it. I protected his legacy. I protected myself. And I learned that even after the deepest betrayal, life can offer unexpected new beginnings. You just have to be brave enough and perhaps stubborn enough to write them yourself. Thank you for walking through this difficult chapter with me. Betrayal can cut deeper than any knife, but resilience can forge strength we never knew we had. If this story resonated, please show your support with a like. Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories of overcoming adversity. Remember, even in the darkest times, hope and purpose can be found. Until next time, be well.